Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Drop, and this is my performance review of the brand new Way of Wade 808-4 Ultra. So very long name, lots of numbers, but as you guys all know, I love the 808 line because the 808 line is the shoe line that Way of Wade uses for their drop-in midsoles, and I love drop-in midsoles. Drop-in midsoles are superior in my personal opinion because of a lot of reasons which we'll get into. But yeah, the 808-2, and when that came out, I was super duper surprised, and that kind of put Way of Wade on the map, on the radar for me. And then the 808-3 came out, amazing performing hoop shoe, one of the best hoop shoes that you can get last year. And then of course the 808-4 Ultra came out a couple weeks ago, and I've been playing in these shoes, and this shoe retails for 160 bucks, which is pretty expensive, but for the tech, it's actually pretty dang nice. So if you guys do want to cop it, try to leave the free link in the description box, and it does help me out if you do choose to get the shoe, if you buy it through the link in the description box. And as always, thank you guys so much for all the support. But let's get it started off with the Traxione. So this is the craziest looking traction pattern that I've, or not the pattern, it's just the parts where there isn't rubber. You know what I mean? So we have a lot of holes. We got 2 holes here in the forefoot, 2 holes here in the heel, and also we have this crazy line exposing the plastic, right? The full length plastic, and also right here. I don't know why they would do this, you know what I mean? Because like I said in the first impressions, if you want a lot of traction, the more surface area that you have, the more contact with the ground that you have with the shoe, the better traction you have, of course, right? But then, you know, they emptied it so that it's just plastic. They're exposing the plastic. So I was like, why are they doing that? But I guess it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Because whatever rubber compound they're using or whatever, it has an amazing bite. You know what I mean? And I needed to break it in for like a game or two. Like right when I first got it, I tried on my wood floors. I was like, this does not feel good. I was pretty disappointed, you know? But then I took it to the gym, and then like I was like, oh, it's getting a little bit better, which had me excited. And then after like a game or two, it had top tier traction. It had an amazing bite. Also, it starts to squeak a little bit more. At first it was very quiet, but then once you break it in, it starts to get a little bit louder for the squeak, which of course has nothing to do with performance, but I feel like most of us hoopers like to have a little bit of a squeak, which the 808-4 Ultra does have. But yeah, also we have this kind of like angled line thing going on, which is kind of like the theme of the overall shoe. You can see the same thing here in the upper with this angle, like this 90-degree angle. And also we have kind of like a crisscross pattern here in the heel as well. But yeah, if you're playing on a clean court, amazing. Also, if you're playing on a dusty court, it was amazing as well because it was biting through dust extremely well, right? So that was the problem for me in the 808-3. The 808-3 picked up a little bit of dust. It wasn't terrible. I just needed to keep up with my wipes. You know, if I did, I had amazing styles, but it did pick up dust, right? But for the 808-4 Ultra, even though it did pick up a little bit of dust, it definitely wasn't nearly as much and as frequent as the 808-3. And also it bit through dust a little bit better as well. So yeah, on a dusty court, the 808-4 Ultra, you're gonna be good to go. It has a really, really good soft. And also, I was playing in other shoes, of course, in my rotation, right? Testing out other shoes. For example, like the Jalen 5 and the Jordan 39, and those were picking up a good amount of dust comparing it to this shoe. And I had a really good time playing on a dusty court with this. So you'll be fine if you're playing on a dusty court. And also durability, I feel like you should be good. Like the rubber is extremely hard. And the grooves are really thick too, and you have a lot of surface area. I get kind of where rubber is, obviously not where the rubber is, you know, you don't have surface area, but where the rubber is, like you have a good amount of rubber close together. So outdoor use, you should be fine. And also Way of Wade is saying that this rubber is wear resistant. So taking their word for it, of course, take it with a grain of salt. I feel like you should be okay on an outdoor court. So also we have like a carbon fiber midfoot shin plate, which is this really nice kind of like light blue and light purple color, which looks great. But yeah, moving on to the heel to toe transition, it feels clunky in the heel, which I don't like, you know what I mean? Like, look at all this freaking plastic and rubber, you know? And if you press it, like some shoes, for example, like, I don't know, the Jalen 5, if you press the rubber, it's actually kind of soft here, right? And also the cage is kind of soft. So even though it is really caged, it's really soft here in the heel, right? But then here for the 808-4 Ultra, it's really like, there's no compression. It's really stiff. Like, look at that. You know what I mean? It's really stiff, so super clunky here in the heel. But we do have a nice rocker shape here in the forefoot. Look at that. So that feels really nice. It's just clunky in the heel when you're doing heel dominant strides. And then coming from that, you know, you have a nice smooth transition to the forefoot. And also we have a lot of forefoot flex. Look at this. You know what I mean? Like it's really, really flexible, but it also has a little bit of tension to it. You know what I mean? Like that's a nice springiness and rebound back. It's not as springy as like a shoe that has full length carbon fiber, like for example like the Jalen 5 or the Y11, but it has a nice little springiness to it. So overall heel to toe transition is nice and springy and overall smooth besides the clunky heel. So there's that. Moving on to the cushioning setup. The cushioning setup is also one of my favorite parts about the shoe, right? So first of all, of course, like I mentioned before, they are using a drop-in midsole and it's full-length Boom. And Boom is one of my favorite foams out of any foams that you can get right now. And it's really, really nice because Boom is right underneath your foot, right? So your foot is right on top of the Boom. There's no struggle board or anything. So it's really, really soft, especially for underfoot cushion. And I don't know what it is. It feels like when I take out the drop-in midsole in the 808-3 and then the 808-4 and try to compare it, it feels like it's the same exact kind of thickness. You know what I mean? Maybe the 808-4 is a little bit thicker, but it doesn't feel like that different to me. But for some reason, the 808-3, when I'm doing hard impacts, right, doing really hard landings, it bottoms out, my foot bottoms out the cushion a little bit and it hits the ground and hurts a little bit. You know what I mean? It's nothing terrible, but for hard impacts, it kind of hurts, you know? But for some reason, in the 808-4, I never had that issue. Like, when I was doing harder impacts, like, it just felt good. Like, the Boom cushion is soft, so I can definitely feel my foot digging into the Boom foam and then hitting the ground just a tiny bit, but it wasn't nearly as bad as the 808-3. So I don't know what they changed up here, but either way, step and comfort and underfoot cushion is one of the best that you can get right now because it is Boost and because it is a drop-in midsole. Also, nothing that I love about this drop-in is that there's this really nice texture on top of the foam. So it grabs your foot, grabs your sock extremely well, improves the lockdown a lot. Also, support. The lateral containment is really good because of the sidewall, which we'll get into. But also the court feel is still really nice. You know, you get nice court feel, good bounce from the Boom. It's comfortable. You have good compression. You know, great underfoot cushion. So yeah, it just checks off everything that I want in a cushioning setup for me personally. And impact protection, like I said, is a little bit improved from the 808-3. So it's a really nice cushioning setup, right? The only thing I really don't like is the heel. Right, and there's no compression from the actual like outside of the shoe. You know what I mean? Because look at this. This is really stiff rubber right here. You know, so yeah, you can definitely feel your foot digging into the foam when you're doing like this. But it's clunky a little bit. So that's the only thing I don't like. But other than that, it's a really nice cushioning setup. And now moving on to the upper. So the upper, for 160 bucks, I definitely feel like it's a little cheap feeling. You know what I mean? It's really thin, which I do like, but it feels a little flimsy. It makes kind of like a cheap noise. You know what I mean? So I don't really like that all too much because the quality doesn't seem great, but on foot it feels really nice, right? It's thin. Overall, it's great for support. It conforms your foot really well too. We have a little bit of fuse, like a really thick fuse actually going around the tip of the toe. We have we have a lot of embroidered parts of the upper as well here in the toe box and pretty much going throughout the entire upper where this kind of like a textile material is, right? And then coming here into the midfoot, we have like, it's a pretty weird construction for the tongue. So the tongue is actually attached and stitched to the actual upper, which is pretty interesting. We have some ventilation holes here. And then of course we do have a midfoot strap, which I usually don't like straps, but I like this one because it doesn't really bother me. You know what I mean? So for example, in like the Kyrie 6, it's a really thick plastic strap and it feels a little bit bulky. And also the strap just kind of gets in the way. It like keeps going over your fingers when you're trying to lace up the laces. But for this strap, you just open it up, it stays open, and you just lace it up, and then you just close the strap. And also, it's a really thin strap. Look at this. So it's not bulky at all. And also, we have a nice stretchy material, so you can stretch the strap and really improve the lockdown. It improves the lockdown just a tiny bit. Now, it's not anything crazy, but it does improve the lockdown a little bit. But yeah, we have still a pretty minimal material, especially on the lateral side, but on the medial side, they're adding all this plastic and also this synthetic material, which is kind of weird. I don't know why you would add that on the medial side. You need, you know, of course, you need support on the lateral side. But anyways, for the tongue, there's no padding, you know what I mean? And also it's a weird construction of a tongue because on the lateral side, this is attached to the upper. You know what I mean? But on the medial side, it's like a half booty construction tongue and kind of like goes into the upper. so you get a better fit. So that's kind of weird. And then in the ankle area, we have a moderate amount of padding. Nothing too crazy, but it does feel pretty nice in the ankle area. And of course, we have this crazy plastic. Look at this. Like, this is a very, look at, I don't know why you would use so much plastic, and also I don't know why it would be so thick, but also there's a hole here, right? So that, I guess if you're like, don't wear these outside or like in the dirt, you know what I mean? Like if you're gonna go hiking and for some reason you want to choose these shoes, you probably shouldn't, because I feel like dirt and stuff would go inside here. And also there is a hole here, but there is a plastic covering it, so you don't have to worry about stuff getting in here, but there is a hole exposing the foam here, which is pretty cool. You know, you can also see it from like the top of the shoe if you remove the drop-in. So yeah, there is the upper there. It feels nice on foot and it feels overall supportive and thin. It's just, it feels a little cheap, right? Especially for the $160 price tag. And now moving on to the fit, I went up half a size and the shoe fits a little bit long because I did go up half a size, right? And because usually the 808s, like for example in the 808-2 and the 808-3, it's just really skinny. So it's a really tight and snug fit here in the toe box. So I didn't mind going up half a size. So that's why I went up half a size for the 808-4. But yeah, it definitely feels like it's still really snug here in the toe box, but it doesn't feel as snug as the 808-2 and 3. So I definitely wish I went true to size, right? So if you want a nice snug fit lengthwise, then definitely go true to size. It'll obviously be a little bit tighter here in the toe box, but I feel like it'd be fine, especially with this material. It does stretch out a little bit once you break it in. But for me, it wasn't the best fit, you know what I mean? Because there is a little bit of length and also the toe box wasn't super snug for me, but it definitely wasn't terrible, especially since the texture, like I mentioned before, on this drop-in really locks my foot down, right? So if that wasn't there, the fit would be a little bit more uncomfortable for me, but because of that, it just, my foot felt locked in to the shoe and I didn't really have to worry about that all too much. So yeah, for most people, you should be fine going true to size. And now moving on to the support and lockdown. Support and lockdown is really good, especially for lateral containment, right? So if you look at the overall shoe, at the necessary lateral counters, here in the forefoot, we got this plastic piece, right? This plastic piece goes all the way around, right, into the forefoot as well. And so that comes up, and also we have this fused material, like this really thick, it's almost like a really thin plastic, you know, and it has this really cool like iridescent pearl glow to it, you know. So you're covered here in the forefoot. Here in the midfoot, of course, you're good as well. The midfoot strap, like I said, doesn't do too much, but here in the heel we have an internal TPU heel counter. It's like very stiff. So lateral containment, your foot is not coming out of the footbed, and also like I mentioned before, but with that drop-in midsole, you have that raised sidewall on the lateral side, which does help. And also because of the texture, it just really locks down your foot and locks down your sock and really improves the lockdown too. So with that, it feels amazing for support and lockdown. And also lateral stability, you're good to go. Look at this. Look at how freaking wide this shoe is, which I definitely feel like every shoe should have. I'm looking at you, Jordan 39. I actually have 39 right here. Nothing. Why? You should have an outrigger. You know what I mean? Like what? You know, all shoes should have this. But anyways, you're low to the ground. You have a wide base. So lateral stability is good. And also, I didn't have any heel slippage or anything like that. So overall, support and lockdown, very good. And no matter how big, or no matter how heavy you are, no matter how shifty you are, you should be covered in the 808-4 Ultra. As far as the durability goes, I am a little bit worried, especially with this material here in the toe box. So just be careful with that. It doesn't feel like it'll be the most durable material because it feels a little cheap and a little flimsy to me, you know? But everything else, like the rubber outsole, you should be fine, right? And now moving on to the weight of the shoe. If I remember correctly, it wasn't like super, I think it was like average weight, right? Like 13 ounces or something like that. Oh, 12.5 ounces. That's like literally average weight. 12.45 ounces. Yeah, so the 808-4 Ultra is average weight and it feels average, you know what I mean? It just feels a little clunky here in the heel, especially when you're running down the court, but nothing terrible. But you know, even though it's average weight, you know, like the shoe didn't feel super lightweight or anything to me. I felt extremely quick in the shoe because of the amazing top tier traction. The cushion was really comfortable, but still very responsive. You know what I mean? And it also had that little bit of bounce. And then the upper overall is really thin. It's a very minimal upper. There's not a whole lot of padding or anything. And my foot felt locked into the shoe, which, you know, when I was doing lateral movements, crossovers, cuts and stuff like that, my foot just, you know, when I told it to do something with the shoe, it did it. You know what I mean? There wasn't any type of lag or anything. So yeah, the responsiveness of this shoe, I felt really quick in it. And now moving on to the ventilation. Ventilation is pretty good. You know, this upper, right, it has a little bit of airflow. It's really thin, so it's not super hot for the ventilation. And then moving on to the aesthetics, it's definitely growing on me a little bit. I really didn't like it at first, but I really like this pink colorway. But I don't know, comparing to like the 808-2 and 808-3, I definitely feel like this is probably the worst looking one in my personal opinion. Especially the other colorways that came out, like the green one and the yellow one. Not a huge fan. So tell us what you guys think of the aesthetics down in the comment section below. So yeah, wrapping things up, yes, this shoe is really nice, amazing. And if you like the 808-2 and 808-3, I definitely feel like you'll love the 808-4 Ultra. I love the upgraded traction from the 808-3 because it has better performance on dust. The cushion also feels a little bit better. You know, like in the 808-2 Ultra and the 3 Ultra, the boom, drop-in midsole, like they all use drop-in with the Ultras. It's just a little too thin, a little too soft, but the 808-4, I don't know what they did, but they changed it up and felt a little bit better for impact protection. Support's still amazing, and it's still a really responsive shoe. And I feel like, you know, even if you're a bigger dude, you should be fine because it's a really supportive shoe as well. But this shoe will be really good for guards. So yeah, this is an amazing performer, and it'll definitely be in my shoe rotation very heavily. But anyways, that about concludes my performance review of the Wade 808-4 Ultra. Again, if you guys want to call, I'll try to leave a link in the description box, but that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.